Elias Mercer stood near the back of the auction house, his gaze fixed on a worn wooden table cluttered with relics, a jumble of faded manuscripts, cracked compasses, and brittle parchments that seemed to pulse with a strange energy. Among them lay an ancient map, its edges frayed and browned with age, yet striking in its intricacy. Elias's fingers hovered just above the surface of the map, reluctant to touch, yet drawn by an irresistible force. It was unlike any cartographic artifact he had encountered before. The lines were delicate but alive, as if etched by a hand guided not just by geography, but by something more profound: stories, memories, perhaps even something beyond time. "Fascinating piece, isn't it?" a voice whispered beside him. Elias turned to see an elderly auctioneer, his eyes gleaming with a knowing light. "Where did this come from?" Elias asked, voice low, eyes never leaving the map. "Found in an estate sale, buried beneath layers of dust and neglect. No one knows its true origin," the man replied, a hint of mystery in his tone. The bidding began almost immediately, but Elias felt no competition. The room seemed too quiet around him. When the gavel finally fell, the map was his. Clutching it carefully, he left the auction house, stepping out into the cool evening air, the city's hum a distant murmur behind him. Back in his study, the map spread before him under the soft glow of a lamp. Elias's sharp eyes traced the lines, the strange symbols that danced along the parchment's surface. As the clock ticked past midnight, he noticed a subtle shift. The edges of the map seemed to ripple, the ink faintly glowing before settling into a new configuration. Hours later, as dawn crept over the horizon, Elias awoke to a startling sight. The map had redrawn itself entirely. New paths appeared where none had been before, symbols rearranged themselves, and distant lands emerged from the blank spaces. His breath caught in his throat. "This can't be possible," he murmured, leaning closer. The map was alive. Over the next several days, Elias became consumed by the map's mysteries. He documented every change, every new symbol, poring over books and ancient texts to decipher its meaning. Yet, as his obsession grew, so did an unnerving sense of being watched. Shadows flitted outside his window at night. Footsteps echoed faintly in the hall. Someone or something knew of the map. One rainy evening, as Elias sat hunched over his notes, a shadow moved past the rain-streaked glass of his study window. Heart-pounding, he reached for his coat, the weight of the map pressing heavily on his mind. The journey was beginning, and he was not alone, with the living map in hand. Elias Mercer stepped into a world where the boundaries between reality and myth blurred, where every dawn promised new revelations and dangers. The map was no mere artifact, was a key, a guide, and a curse, and whoever sought it would stop at nothing to claim its power. Maps of every size and era, parchment scrolls, and faded photographs lay strewn about, each a silent testament to a life dedicated to charting the unknown. Yet today was unlike any other. Before him, spread open on the ancient oak desk, was the map that had transformed his existence overnight. Its surface shimmered faintly, lines and contours shifting imperceptibly as if alive. Elias leaned closer, his sharp eyes behind the round lenses fixed on the newly drawn path that had appeared with the dawn. The map revealed a location far beyond the confines of his familiar world, a place whispered about only in the most obscure historical texts and fragmented legends. Lost civilizations, untold mysteries, and the mythical origin of the world itself beckoned from this distant point. Elias felt a shiver of awe ripple through him. tempered by the cautious pragmatism that had kept him alive through countless expeditions. This was no ordinary journey. The stakes were higher than he could fully comprehend. He rose from his chair, the wooden floor creaking beneath his worn boots, and moved to the wall where he kept his gear. Every item was packed with precision, a compass that had belonged to his mentor, sturdy boots worn soft by travel, a leather satchel filled with notebooks and drawing tools, and a compact survival kit. Each piece carried memories and purpose. His mentor's disappearance haunted him still, a shadow that had cast doubt on his every decision. Yet, it was also a source of fierce determination. If the map had chosen him, he would not fail as his mentor had. Outside, the city buzzed with indifferent life. Vendors shouted their wares, children laughed in the streets, and the distant rumble of traffic underscored the ordinary rhythm of the world. Elias paused on the doorstep, the living map folded carefully inside his satchel, its faint glow warm against his side. The contrast between the mundane and the extraordinary was stark. He knew the path ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty. Others were already hunting the map's power, driven by darker ambitions. As he made his way to the edge of the city, the landscape stretched out before him, rolling hills, dense forests, and the first hints of the wild unknown. The map pulsed softly, a rhythmic heartbeat guiding his steps. At a quiet hilltop, Elias stopped to catch his breath, the wind teasing strands of his dark hair across his forehead. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose. In that moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with possibility and peril. He unfolded the map once more, tracing the intricate lines with a fingertip. The path ahead was uncertain, the lands shifting with every dawn. But Elias felt an unspoken promise in the map's glow, a call to discovery, a challenge to his very understanding of existence. He was ready to take the first step into the unknown. The journey had begun, and with it, the endless pursuit of truth, wonder, and survival. "I don't know what lies ahead," Elias murmured to himself, "but I will follow this map to the ends of the earth if I must." And with that, he stepped forward into the unfolding dawn. Every dawn, the parchment in Ilias's possession redrew itself, lines and symbols shifting like the land beneath their feet. This morning's transformation had led them toward a canyon, a place where the earth seemed to breathe and rearrange itself with uncanny subtlety. The walls of the canyon towered on either side, their faces cracked and worn, casting long shadows that stretched across the dusty path like fingers reaching out to warn travelers away. Ilias's boots crunched over gravel littered with fragments of stone and dust. The air was dry, carrying the metallic scent of minerals and the faint, distant cry of birds unknown to him. He paused often, lifting the map under his breath to peer at the glowing lines etched faintly by dawn's magic. The shifting paths pointed toward a landmark that promised answers, a lost civilization hinted at in the cryptic symbols. Yet with every step, a gnawing sensation grew in his gut, the feeling of eyes watching, waiting. "You feel it too," Marco said quietly, his voice low and steady. The local guide's dark eyes flicked toward the canyon's entrance, muscles taut like a coiled spring. "This place isn't just dangerous because of the terrain. There are others moving out here, others who want what you've got." Elias swallowed, adjusting the strap of his satchel that held his precious map. "It's more than just a map now," he admitted. "It's a key, and if someone else knows that, we're in deeper trouble than I thought." They moved cautiously, Marco leading with practiced surety, navigating the subtle changes in the rocks and sand signs of the land's restless nature. The canyon floor was littered with sparse, brittle vegetation, each leaf and twig a potential herald of movement. Elias's fingers itched to sketch what he saw, but the urgency of the moment kept his pen still. Suddenly, a sharp snap echoed from the left, a twig broken underfoot. Elias froze, senses sharpening. His pulse thundered in his ears as he scanned the rocks, the shadows between them deepening as the light waned. A figure emerged abruptly from behind a boulder, weapon raised and eyes cold. The dry wind whipped dust into a swirling haze, stinging Elias's eyes and filling his mouth with grit. "Ambush," Marco hissed, grabbing Elias's arm and yanking him toward cover. Heart pounding, Elias dove behind a jagged outcrop, the coarse stones scraping against his jacket. Bullets kicked up puffs of dust where they struck the ground moments before him. "Keep low, move with me," Marco whispered urgently, eyes darting for the attackers' positions. Elias nodded, swallowing fear, trusting the guide's instincts as they slipped through the narrowing corridor. The canyon itself seemed alive, the walls subtly shifting as if conspiring to conceal their passage or perhaps to trap them forever. The chase was a blur of quick decisions and whispered commands. The landscape's ever-changing nature provided both peril and refuge. A sudden crack in the rock opened a narrow crevice just wide enough for them to slip through. Elias's breath came in ragged gasps, sweat and dust mingling on his brow. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit faltered and faded, swallowed by the canyon's shifting geometry. When they finally stopped to rest beneath a twisted acacia tree, Elias pulled out the map. The glow from the dawn's redrawing still lingered faintly on the parchment. He traced the new paths with trembling fingers, mind racing. The map was not merely a guide, it was a living puzzle, its secrets entwined with the fate of the world's forgotten origins. "They're watching," Elias said quietly, eyes scanning the darkening horizon, "and they won't stop until they have this map." Marco nodded grimly. "We'll have to be faster, smarter. This land is unstable, but it's also our ally if we know how to move with it." Elias folded the map carefully, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders heavier than the pack he carried. The thrill of discovery was now tempered with dread, the knowledge that forces bent on conquest and destruction were closing in. Yet within him, a fierce determination burned. He would not let the map's power fall into the wrong hands. As night descended, Elias's thoughts drifted back to the mentor he had lost, whose voice echoed in his memory. "The world is never as fixed as it seems. Trust the land, but trust your heart even more." The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger. But Elias knew one thing for sure: he would follow the map wherever it led, through shadow and light, until the world's deepest secrets were unveiled or he was silenced forever. The canyon's darkness pressed close around them, punctuated only by the crackling campfire and the distant howl of a lone coyote. Elias stared at the maps, shifting lines once more, the living parchment whispering promises and warnings alike. The pursuit was relentless, the stakes unimaginable, but the journey had only just begun. And somewhere in the shadows, eyes gleamed with cold intent, watching, waiting for the next move. Each footfall echoed with a crunch of gravel, the wind whistling sharply through the jagged crevices, as if carrying whispered warnings. The map, still fresh from its dawn transformation, had pointed me toward this router path, both promising and perilous. I adjusted the strap of my pack and paused to catch my breath, scanning the terrain ahead when movement caught my eye. From behind a jagged boulder, a figure emerged with the ease of someone as much a part of this landscape as the weathered stones themselves. His eyes, dark and sharp, met mine with a steady gaze that both unsettled and intrigued me. "Lost, or just looking for trouble?" he asked, voice low but steady, laced with a dry humor that I couldn't quite place. I hesitated, weighing my options. The shifting lands had already proven my knowledge and preparation insufficient. The map's constant redrawing demanded local insight I lacked. Neither, I replied cautiously. Just following the map. He offered a slow nod, his posture relaxed but alert. Marco Silva, he said, extending a hand that was rough, calloused, and steady. I know these parts better than most. If you're serious about surviving, you'll need a guide. Reluctance warred with necessity. Trust was a scarce commodity in these uncertain lands. And yet, the desperation to understand and traverse the shifting terrain overrode my caution. I took his hand, sealing the unspoken agreement that would bind us in the days to come. Our first steps together were tentative. The silence between us filled with the sounds of the wilderness, the distant call of birds, the rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze, the occasional crack of a twig underfoot. Marco's gait was sure-footed, his eyes constantly scanning the landscape for signs invisible to me, a subtle shift in soil color, an unusual pattern in the rock formations, the faintest hint of a path that the map had yet to reveal. At a narrow ledge, he paused, pointing to a barely perceptible fissure in the rock face. This ridge shifts with the wind, he explained. One wrong step and you're sliding down 100 feet. The map won't warn you every time. You've got to feel it here. He placed a hand on the stone, his fingers tracing the cracks as if reading a secret language etched by nature itself. That evening, beneath a sparse canopy of gnarled trees, we settled beside a flickering campfire. The heat was a welcome contrast to the chill creeping into the air as shadows lengthened and night deepened. The wilderness seemed to hold its breath, punctuated only by distant howls and the rustle of unseen creatures. Marco unpacked a modest meal-dried meat and hard bread and offered some to me, his dry wit easing the tension between us. "You're not like the others," he remarked, eyes reflecting the firelight. "Most come here chasing legends, blinded by greed or glory. You seem different." I shrugged, poking at the embers. Maybe I'm just another fool chasing a dream. He chuckled softly. Dreams can be dangerous, especially when the land itself fights back. But if you're going to survive, you'll need more than dreams. You'll need trust. The words lingered as sleep claimed us, the shifting earth murmuring beneath our makeshift shelter. Dawn broke pale and uncertain, the light revealing a landscape transformed. The map, ever alive, had redrawn itself once again, presenting a new configuration of paths and symbols. I watched as Marco's eyes quickly caught nuances I would have missed: the subtle tilt of a tree, the fresh tracks of an animal, the way the morning mist clung to certain hollows. "Here," he said quietly, pointing to a narrow trail veiled by undergrowth. "This path wasn't here yesterday. The land moves, and so must we." As we moved forward, the fragile alliance between us began to solidify, built not only on necessity but on a growing respect for the knowledge and skill each brought to the journey. Yet beneath the surface, I remained aware of the dangers ahead, not just from the shifting lands, but from the ever-present shadow of those who pursued the map's power. The guide's offer was more than a chance at survival. It was the gateway to deeper mysteries and challenges, and I knew that trusting Marco Silva might be the most critical decision I would make on this path into the unknown. And so, with the map's dawn redrawn, path stretching before us and the shifting lands awaiting our steps, our journey truly began. Endless waves of golden sand shifted with the breeze, swallowing the ancient stone structures little by little, as if the desert itself sought to reclaim what had been lost to time. The air was thick with the scent of dry earth and dust, and the faint, almost imperceptible sound of the wind whispered through the skeletal remains of pillars and broken walls, carrying with it the echoes of a forgotten civilization. "This place," Marco said, his voice low and reverent, "has been hidden for centuries. The shifting sands have kept it safe, but only just." Ilias nodded, eyes scanning the horizon where the dunes rolled endlessly. His heart beat with a strange mixture of exhilaration and unease. The living map had guided them here, unveiling a new path with the dawn that promised answers, answers that had eluded scholars and explorers alike. Yet, the ominous knowledge that they were not alone gnawed at the edges of his resolve. They made their way carefully into the ruins, stepping over broken stones etched with faded carvings and symbols that hinted at the grandeur lost beneath the desert's grasp. Each step was a journey back through time, a silent testament to a world that had once been vibrant and alive, now reduced to shadows and echoes. Inside the crumbled remains of what appeared to be a grand hall, Ilias unrolled his map and illuminated the space with the flickering flame of a torch. The walls, though worn, bore cryptic symbols that resonated with the patterns he had seen on the living map. He crouched close, tracing the ancient carvings with a gloved finger, noting their intricate geometry and the subtle way they seemed to pulse with hidden meaning. "Look at this," Elias murmured, heart pounding. "These symbols? They're not just decoration. They're a language, a code of sorts." Marco leaned in, eyes sharp and curious. Could this be connected to the origin of the world? Elias nodded slowly, the weight of the discovery settling on him like a mantle. "The map led us here for a reason. These carvings could be the key to understanding the myths, the very foundation of our planet's history." Hours passed as Elias sketched the symbols meticulously into his journal, cross-referencing them with notes from previous expeditions and the cryptic hints the map had offered. The air grew cooler as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced eerily across the ancient stones. But outside, the distant rumble of engines and the crunch of tires on gravel shattered the fragile silence. Elias's stomach tightened. The unmistakable sound of Cross's forces was drawing near, relentless and unforgiving. "We need to move," Marco whispered urgently. "Just a little longer," Ilias replied, eyes glued to the symbols. "These carvings, they speak of a balance, a fragile one between knowledge and power, creation and destruction. If Cross gets his hands on this," Marco's gaze hardened, "then the world won't just shift, it could break." The urgency accelerated their pace as they gathered their gear and prepared to leave the ruins. Elias glanced back once more, the map's living surface glowing faintly in his satchel, as if aware of the danger that shadowed them. The desert night enveloped them as they slipped away, the echoes of a lost city lingering in their minds, a whisper of the past that carried the weight of the future. As they disappeared into the shifting sands, Elias's thoughts churned. The map's revelations were profound, but so were the risks. The quest for truth was no longer just an academic pursuit. It was a battle for survival, for the very soul of the world. And with every step, the line between wonder and dread blurred further, promising that the journey ahead would test not only their minds and bodies, but the very core of their spirits. The map pulsed quietly against his chest, a heartbeat in the darkness, a promise of secrets yet to unfold. Elias knew this was only the beginning. The echoes of the lost city would follow them, haunting and guiding, until the final truth was claimed or lost forever. With a final glance at the horizon where dawn's first light would soon break, Elias steeled himself. Each step I took stirred the dust of forgotten centuries beneath worn boots, and the faint wind whispered secrets through broken pillars and crumbled archways. The air was thick with the mingling scents of earth and salt, a reminder that the world was older and more mysterious than any map ID ever drawn. I moved carefully, my fingers tracing the faint carvings etched into sandstone walls, symbols that matched those redrawn on the living map that now consumed my days and haunted my nights. The map's dawn transformation had led me here, to this place, promising answers entwined with danger. My heart pounded, not with fear alone, but a potent mixture of awe and apprehension. Suddenly, a rustle from the shadows snapped me from my reverie. My hand went instinctively to the small knife at my belt, eyes scanning the dim recesses of the ruins. From behind a collapsed archway, a figure emerged, a woman, short black hair framing a face hardened by experience but alert, her sharp eyes locking onto mine with a piercing intensity. "You're a long way from anywhere safe," she said, voice low and steady, edged with a dry wit that hinted at battles fought in shadows. "Name's Lena Dawes." I relaxed only slightly, wary but intrigued. "Elias Mercer," I replied, studying her. "And you are?" "Someone who's been watching the same enemy you're running from." She stepped closer, her gaze flickering to the map I held carefully rolled in my hand. General Cross's paramilitary forces aren't just a rumor anymore. They're hunting this map and anyone foolish enough to follow it. Her words hit hard, carving away any lingering doubts about the scale of the threat. I had sensed the danger before, felt the shadows lengthen behind me, but hearing it confirmed by someone so direct was sobering. "Why should I trust you?" I asked, the question hanging between us like the ruins' ancient stones. Lena's eyes softened briefly, a flicker of something unspoken passing through them. "Because if you don't, you won't last long. And because I'm the best chance you've got." Her offer was as unexpected as it was necessary. I weighed my options. Solitude had been my refuge for so long. But this journey demanded allies, especially ones who knew the enemy's moves. We settled near a flickering campfire, the warm glow casting shifting shadows on the stone around us.